Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Williams, founder of Business Skills for Health Professionals, and welcome to the Beyond Clinical podcast. In this podcast, I'll be interviewing health professionals from diverse backgrounds who have moved into unconventional roles beyond clinical. We'll be hearing their stories and tips and hope that this inspires you to pursue unique career paths. This is episode 29 of the podcast, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Julia Hayden. Julia, do you want to say hello?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about Julia's background. Julia is a dietitian with over 7 years experience in the field. She was inspired to pursue a career in dietetics due to her passion to make the lives of others better and her love for how food and cooking bring people together, highlighting how we're all more alike than we are different. Julia holds a Bachelor's of Applied Science and a Master's of Health Science and Nutrition Communication from Toronto Metropolitan University. And during her time there, she had the opportunity to co lead a clinical research trial on the effect of various puree snacks on appetite, food intake, and glycemic and insulin responses in healthy adults, which was published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition. One of the highlights of Julia's career was her time at Foodmaestro, and that's actually where I met Julia when she was there, a small food technology startup with 12 employees, which was acquired by Walmart Canada after 4 years of working there. During her tenure at Foodmaestro, she led product delivery and nutrition algorithm development and launched digital retail health experiences such as dietary filters and food profiles on three leading grocery retailers in the UK and Canada. Currently, Julia is the Senior Manager of Health Innovation at Walmart Canada, where she leads nutrition programs for patients and associates, as well as other transformational projects for Walmart Health and Wellness. She specializes in the intersection of technology and nutrition, focusing on translating evidence based dietary information into user friendly digital capabilities and experiences. Julia thrives on diving deep into cutting edge nutritional research and transforming complex findings into actionable insights that can enhance our health span. Julia is determined to address the common misconception that dietetics is merely about meal plans. She emphasizes that it is a lifestyle shift to eat what will nourish your body for the life stage you're in and to always maintain the enjoyment of food. Beyond her professional achievements, Julia is also an avid baker with a particular passion for savory treats, recently perfecting the art of homemade bagels. That sounds really delicious. What's your favorite bagel?
You can make the plain base, and then I usually put either sesame seeds or that everything bagel
Yes.
seasoning on top, but it makes the house smell amazing.
Oh, I bet. And are they like the dense bagels, like more of a Montreal style or more like the
They
fluffy
are pretty
kind?
dense. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love a good bagel. That's awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. And I like to start out with a bit of a like fun question. I'm not sure if you're like a podcast listener, but I love to ask my guests in this season, like, what's your favorite podcast that you're enjoying at the moment?
Yeah, I have a podcast that listen to on the way to work when I have that morning energy, and I listen to the Zoe Science and Nutrition podcast, which I find really breaks down clinical nutrition
Mm.
research, helps me feel still very connected to the field. And then on the way home from work, sometimes you want to something more fun, and I really like the Good Hang podcast with Amy Poehler.
Oh, oh, fun. I've never heard of that one. I have heard of the Zoe one. I actually heard about it on the Diary of a CEO
Oh,
podcast because I
okay.
think he is an investor in Zoe,
Oh,
the
okay. There you
founder of
go.
that podcast. So, yeah, that's what led me to listen to the Zoe one. So it's kind of interesting, but very cool. So, yeah, I'd love to hear in your words a little bit more about your health professional origin story and your career journey.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. I originally wanted to be a nurse when I was younger. I
mm,
really liked the medical field. And even in high school, I had a neighbor on my street who needed to get to medical appointments. So I would take her and then get to go in and
Mm.
actually kind of view behind the scenes of some of the procedures. And in one of the appointments that I went to, I actually passed out on the floor.
Oh
So it
no.
was this was right around, the 11th grade where you're about to apply, and I thought maybe nursing isn't for me. So I ended up applying to both nutrition and nursing.
Mm.
And just with my love for cooking, as I mentioned, with bagel baking recently and growing up in Waterloo, which was surrounded by the blackberry growth at the time.
Mhm.
I just really love technology and food, and that's what got me into dietetics and doing my bachelor and master's at Toronto Metropolitan. When I got into the internship phase, that was really interesting. I think I always tell people it's more valuable to learn what you don't like than what you do
Mm.
like, because you may like many things, but it's good to start to understand what you don't like.
Mm.
But I found in my diabetes education rotation, what I did really like was there was a lot of applications starting to come out that were connected
Mm.
to CGMs, and I loved that aspect of
Mhm.
nutrition where people were in control of their own health data. And
Mhm.
when we made changes, it was visible to them that they could see their blood glucose improving. And I fell in love with that aspect. So I thought in an ideal world, when I graduate, I'll have something related to that.
Mhm.
And after graduating my master's, when everyone's in that application phase of life, I saw Foodmaestro, a really small company. At the time, it was
Mhm.
just the founder and the CTO. They were hiring a registered dietitian, which I was
Mhm.
impressed to start out with, that they
Yeah.
didn't call it general nutrition, but called a
Yeah.
registered dietitian. So I was intrigued and I applied there. I ended up getting the position, and those 4 years flew by at Food Maestro. We created algorithms that initially were used for mobile applications. So you could
Mhm.
scan a barcode based on your food allergy or intolerance. We had an app for the low FODMAP diet, and it would tell you if you could eat the food or not. And then we took that data engine and we started selling it to retailers. So that is how we started working with Walmart Canada. And then they actually ended up acquiring our company.
Mhm.
So that is how I've ended up here for the past 4 years.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like the first podcast I did on here was with somebody else working in health tech, and it is such an intriguing area that I think is only going to grow in terms of opportunities for dietitians and other health professionals. Because I think it adds that, like what you said, that you were really happy to see that they were actually hiring a dietitian from the beginning. And I just want to mention, like, a lot of companies are not specifying that. But I think there's still a lot of opportunity to like explore those opportunities, even if they aren't labeled as a dietitian. So definitely keep an eye on like your favorite apps or keep an eye on that startup market if you're looking for
Exactly.
opportunities. Yeah, cool. Do you think there's anything that has stood out to you that's contributed to your success in some of these more business oriented settings?
I think the first thing was working at a startup, because in a small company, you have many different experiences.
Hmm.
You really get to see the full engine of the business from the financials to if you're working on something, how are you going to market it? You get exposed to everything. So now that I'm at a larger company, I feel like I have such an appreciation for the engine behind a business that I got to
Hmm.
see right up close. I'd say the other thing is when you're at a small company, your senior level visibility is very clear. You're sitting right
Yeah.
beside the CEO, CTO, so you hear how decisions are being made, which at an early
Hmm.
stage of your career, I think now I realize how valuable that was. Maybe I didn't appreciate it at the time.
Mm.
But I do think that has been really helpful. And then I think
Hmm.
just the other thing with my master's degree was in nutrition communication, and a big component of that was knowledge translation.
Yeah.
Um, But I've really found that helpful, even just beyond nutrition in a larger retail business setting when you go to tackle any problem, to be able to take that skill, which I think a lot of dietitians have, is how do you take the complex problem, untangle it, and start on step one of how are we going to
Hmm.
start to solve this problem and explain it very clearly, I have felt has been very valuable in my growth so far.
Yeah, I love that you brought up that one because I see that as a very transferable skill that dietitians are, a lot of us have that specialized training and knowledge transfer and, taking the complex and simplifying it. And that, like, not even in just health aspects of business, I think that can really be beneficial in many different areas of a company that you can kind of bring that skill to, like project management as an example. Yeah.
How do you get
Um,
everyone on board to what you're
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to do?
exactly. How do you get started?
Yes.
What has been the role of mentors and coaches or community on your career journey?
From a mentorship perspective, I think, again, in this startup, just having those senior leaders really push me outside of my comfort zone. So being thrown into presentations at a really early stage of my career was very helpful to
Hmm.
grow. But now in this larger retail setting, Walmart has a fantastic kind of mentorship culture here. And I
Hmm.
have a great mentor currently. And the most impactful thing that she helped me with is something called a core values and motivators exercise.
Hmm.
And it's 50 core values that are listed, and you rank them as low, medium, high. And then you go
Hmm.
back to the high priority ones and you start to think about what is most important to me. And what this has been helpful for is rather than thinking directly about what position I want next or where I want to
Hmm.
leave to go move to a different company, it's actually really honing on what your core values are for work and how that translates into your personal life, and how
Hmm.
when you're looking at job postings, you kind of go back to that and you say,
Hmm.
does this match my core values and motivators? For my career and personal life. And that's been extremely valuable and as an exercise for me to kind of continue to grow and move forward in my career.
That's really cool. I think that makes a lot of sense when it comes to, just like knowing what things to pursue and maybe even projects, like what to get involved in and maybe what to
Yeah,
not jump all
exactly.
over so that you're not getting overwhelmed. That's really neat. Um, Did you find that you ran into any gaps in knowledge when like you were moving? Well, you never like you weren't really in a clinical role other than like your internship, but maybe this question doesn't fully apply, but did you find like there were any
Oh, it
business
applies.
knowledge gaps?
Absolutely. I think with my first job, it was the technology knowledge gap. So the bridging of that gap is just to sit with the team and ask
Mhm.
questions and learn by doing was really helpful. But in my current role, I would say actually the gap was understanding the scope of a pharmacist and
Mhm.
how a pharmacy runs, because a lot of the nutrition programs that I run are connected with pharmacy. And
Yeah.
I think going to school and becoming a dietitian, you learn about the other professions, but I don't think I had a full grasp of how much now pharmacists can
Mm.
do and how they
Mhm.
really are a very trusted healthcare professional and one that gets a lot of face time with patients. So
Mhm.
that has been very valuable to learn about that profession on a deeper level and how important nutrition is within
Mhm.
that area. When people are starting a new medication or picking up a routine medication for cholesterol management, how do you inject nutrition into a lot of
Mhm.
those conversations?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had I mean, we had some parallel experiences working in retail settings with pharmacies, so I definitely can relate to that expanded learning. And I think just even taking it a step further, like when we're in internship, we learn about certain settings, like typically hospital settings, and a pharmacist role is quite different in a hospital setting than it would be in more of like a community retail pharmacy. So yeah, that must have been very interesting to kind of like, there's just so much opportunity for prevention and, education
Yes.
the general public in that setting. Um,
Absolutely.
what do you love most about what you're doing right now?
With Walmart, I think it's a name a lot of people know. So I take that to heart in the size of the impact that I can have. So I think
Yeah.
just the scale of the company is really exciting to me, and I really love that even if we're piloting a project in a couple of cities or provinces, even that still has a huge reach and impact because
Hmm.
we have over 2 million people per day. They're in our stores or online. So I think the ability or the opportunity to have a nutrition impact for me wakes me up every morning and gets
Hmm.
me excited
Hmm.
to keep moving. And I also really love the transformation of health. I think health has been transforming tremendously recently. So I get a lot of exposure to the physical transformation. So I've been involved in store transformation and pharmacy transformation, but then the digital side, I think, as well.
Hmm.
So how do we, connect our pharmacy offering while we also sell groceries at Walmart?
Hmm.
How do you bring that all together? And I think it's a problem statement that it makes me really excited and to figure it out and to test it out
Hmm.
and learn.
Yeah, that's so cool. Are there any like programs or courses that you're working on or current like working towards right now to develop skills?
I did this year. It's a certificate in product management, and that was
Mm.
really interesting. That you can think of almost anything as a product, if it's even just a
Hmm.
program you're running, and really breaking down what does the patient or the customer need. So that's been
Hmm.
helpful to put that lens on a lot of the programs that I've been working on. I also did one in change management, which I
Mm.
think with how much and how quickly we're changing, I think that's advice for anybody working in a bigger setting is that you can have an idea and in your mind it's so clear. But
Hmm.
ultimately, you need people on the team to be on board to make that change. So, how do you properly create change management within your project
Mm.
plan to get people to buy into your vision? And then when you launch it, they're the biggest advocates of it versus, just an
Hmm.
email coming in of, we're launching this. Can you tell everyone
Right.
about it? So, I think that's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think that's really key in those larger settings, right? When you're trying to, you're so far removed from the everyday and there's so many people to connect with, that becomes such an important part of um yeah, like having success with a program at scale. And I think that's interesting, the product management. I feel like that could be really valuable to people trying to maybe pursue careers in digital and health tech, because I see that term used a lot in postings. So that could definitely be an area for growth in terms of like courses to pursue.
Yes, and there are a lot of books, YouTube courses, online courses on
Hmm.
product management, as well as actual, college and university. But I think just diving in and doing an initial even YouTube video
Hmm.
about what product management is gives you an appreciation, and it might
Yeah,
spark some excitement of, oh, what if I could do that from a health and nutrition perspective?
right. Exactly.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
options.
Yeah, that's great. If there's something that you could tell your early career self, what would that be?
Yes, this is a great question. I think I would tell myself that it is likely that your future job may not exist yet,
That's a good
because
one.
I think we all spend so much time constantly thinking of where am I going to be in 5 years? Where am I going to be in 10 years? And my current job probably, or it didn't exist 5 years ago. So to
Hmm.
take less stress off of your or take stress off of your shoulders to think, I don't need to have a perfect plan. I think that's where it comes back to that know your core values and your motivators of if you're
Hmm.
staying true to that and open to opportunities, then you're probably going to end up somewhere you never expected and probably didn't
Hmm.
exist. Especially with the growth of AI and healthcare, we're just
Hmm.
seeing so many new companies pop up
Hmm.
that use AI with healthcare
Hmm.
together. And I can only imagine, if not already, nutrition will be a massive part of that. So maybe your future job is just being written up as a job
Right.
posting right now. You have no idea.
Yeah, I think that's really smart advice because, it's easy to think about the steps that you might have to go through to progress in your career. But I think, like you said, we don't know what's going to be out there. And I think as long as you're continuing to grow skills, and I always found, like, and I'm not sure if you found this, like, it's really good to learn new skills when needed, like taking a course on something that you're actively doing on a day-to-day basis really is more meaningful than just like acquiring various certifications, because you remember it and you retain it so much better.
Yeah, I think there's that saying, if you learn something and then explain it to someone or use
Hmm.
it, you'll remember it. So, yeah, absolutely. And I think the
Yeah.
other thing too, I would tell myself it, I wish I did a little bit more clinical and
Hmm.
counseling if I could go back in time, because a lot of the products or programs that I'm building are based on, all of the interactions that I did have with patients and just remembering certain users that
Hmm.
you remember and think, oh, I'm building this for them. I think if I had more time that I did that
Hmm.
in a private practice or a clinical setting, I think I just have more experiences to draw from. But that's just something that if I could go
Yeah.
back.
Well, and I think it's motivating because, finding these niche roles can take time. Like finding opportunities in health tech or business and industry sometimes is it's not as easy as finding maybe a clinical role when you're first starting out. And I think that can be motivating to just say like there's still a lot of value even if you want to be somewhere else eventually, in having those early experiences in different health settings. And I certainly found that myself. Like I spent maybe the first 5 years like working in all the different areas of publicly funded health, and it yeah gave you great exposure to like our healthcare system and what are the challenges and what are people struggling with. So I totally think that that's a really good thing to kind of not underestimate the value of that time.
Exactly. You raise a great point about understanding the healthcare system because I think a lot of startups or even retail, you're not competing with the healthcare system. You're constantly trying
Hmm.
to complement it
Yeah.
and create services. So if you understand the healthcare system really well, you probably know the gaps and
Yeah.
where there's opportunity for either technology or consulting that can fill those gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Any advice for listeners who are looking to kind of move into like a different type of career path than maybe traditional healthcare
One
professional?
tactic, yeah, one tactic that I've shared is keeping an eye on companies when they say they've raised funds or
Hmm.
gone through different funding rounds. I find for just pure career opportunities based on companies having capital, I think
Yeah.
that's a great opportunity. You see a company on LinkedIn post a funding announcement, go check their job board
Hmm.
a week later, or reach out and say,
Yep.
this is the type of job that I could offer within your
Hmm.
company. Would you be interested to chat to learn more? I think
Hmm.
that's been interesting. And then I think doing that motivators value exercise. So even if
Hmm.
it's not the actual formal one, just kind of writing down what motivates you in work and life and what are your
Hmm.
core values that when you do that, you know what you actually want. Is it that you want the teamwork or more teamwork because you work more independently currently? Do you want
Hmm.
more flexibility? Is it
Hmm.
compensation? And,
Hmm.
there's no judgment. You just write down what it is you're looking for so that when these opportunities arise, you make sure it's a good fit and you're not just
Hmm.
jumping into it because it's the first one. that popped up.
Yeah, and I think another layer that I did some work with is strengths, like looking at what are your strengths too, because I think that can be another layer to consider. Like, and it's not to say you can't shift your strength over time. You can learn new things and skills, but if there's some things that you feel very naturally good at, it can be easier to build upon those than to, maybe find something that's like not in that space at all. Not to limit yourself, but I think that can be a really helpful thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And even just to your earlier question about things I would tell my future self, and I think if you're interested in finding a job beyond clinical, I would say my advice is to maybe stay connected to clinical as part-time of,
Hmm.
counseling, or if you're not doing that, at least the kind of staying up to date with research and through
Hmm.
podcasts or books really helps because sometimes it feels like nerve-wracking to move away from a
Hmm.
field. But I think always keeping your toes dipped into it in some way provides that level
Yeah.
of community and comfort that comes with nutrition.
Yeah, I think that's great. I hear that from a lot of people when they're thinking about making this transition, that they're a little bit afraid of maybe losing their clinical skills and I think too, like in this era of startups and health tech, not all of those opportunities have to be full time.
Yep.
Because like smaller companies may not have the funds to start with someone full time. They may start part time or consulting. And yeah, like you could keep, a part time role in clinical while doing some of that work to get into those fields. That can be really helpful too.
Yeah, consulting's a great one to call out. If, I see a company is trying to build something and you think you could offer, a nutrition
Hmm.
lens to it, maybe it's not, are you hiring a dietitian? But this is, if you're building this type of program or based on your
Hmm.
application, I think I could offer some really valuable insights that would help you reach new audiences.
Yeah. Well, I think the way you just said that is so valuable because you're putting their needs first, right? Like you're kind of talking about, and I think that's where sometimes when we're networking and pitching ourselves, like we really want to be rooted in helping them solve a problem.
Yes.
And that is sometimes not always the case. Like we sort of lead with our credentials or we lead with, what we've done before, but really kind of getting to understand what they do. And I think that's one of the things I talk a lot about with people is like, if you're interested in a company, really understand them. And
Yes.
sometimes that takes time and digging. But I found that was really important to being like successful in any kind of business and industry role.
Yes, absolutely. Checking their mission and vision or their ESG page of what they're really proud to
Hmm.
talk about and how nutrition and healthy eating can
Hmm.
absolutely amplify probably what they're already doing.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other final words or anything you want to share before we wrap up?
I think the community of healthcare professionals moving into tech, it's really good to stay connected on LinkedIn, especially when people, post about what they've just launched or new technologies that they're interested in. Sometimes health
Hmm.
tech and innovation can be a roller coaster because not everything
Hmm.
works out. You could launch a
Yeah.
program and maybe nobody likes it or tries it out, or you could launch it and it could be amazing and a huge success. So to keep yourself kind of level along that roller coaster, seeing other people do amazing things with health tech, really
Mm.
sometimes on a day where your program maybe isn't going as you want, when you see that, you go, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing it. Look at what they
Hmm.
just did. That looks amazing. So staying connected through LinkedIn and with many other health tech professionals would be my
Mm.
advice.
Yeah, I think that's great. I used to keep a folder in my email of just like positive feedback from customers and clients because I found like if I was having a bad day and things weren't, like you said, going where you wanted them to, like you can always look back on those things to see like, oh yeah, this does have impact and we've been able to help people in this way. So that can be a good
Yeah.
motivator in those times too.
Sometimes you lose that with
Awesome.
technology too. You
Yeah.
don't see the person using it. So if you have
No.
feedback, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Keeping that or printing it is very
Yeah,
valuable.
for sure. That's helpful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed hearing from Julia today and you're feeling inspired. So, to stay informed of our latest podcasts and programs, you can sign up for my monthly newsletter. It's at www.skillsforhps.com. I'll put the links in the show notes. And also, if you love the show, please consider rating it, reviewing it, and maybe sharing it with somebody. But yeah, thanks for joining us today, Julia, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye.